Welcome to the Pathways to Success. I'm Julian Placino, recruiting professional turned success speaker, show host, and media entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to helping you find your unique pathway to success by having conversations that educate, inspire, and transform. Together, we'll interview some of the world's greatest leaders and uncover their secrets to success. Thanks for tuning in, and on to the show. Welcome to episode 187 of the Pathways to Success, where we help you find your unique pathway to success by having conversations with the world's greatest leaders. I'm Julian Placino, your host, and we have an outstanding show for you today. Today's episode is brought to you in part by City Central. City Central offers everything from meeting spaces and private offices to virtual meeting rooms. And if you use the promo code PATHWAYS, you get 50% off your first 3 months. So if you are looking for an innovative workspace for your business to thrive, I highly recommend you check out City Central at citycentral.com and use the promo code PATHWAYS for 50% off your first 3 months. So before we get kicked off, I got to give a huge shout out to everyone here turned in to the live stream. I see Christy, I see Emily, and WCD Speakers, my agent, Waleed Dunn. How are you? It's great to see you here. And also, quick note, if you're watching this on Facebook, head over to YouTube, type in my name, Julian Placino, and click the live link and join the chat. It's just a little bit easier for us to have one screen instead of two. So hopefully you can join us there. I am very excited about our featured guest today. I met him back in 2019. It is my pleasure to welcome founder of DeadSoxy, Jason Simmons. Jason, welcome to the Pathways to Success. How are you?
Thank you, Julian. Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to have the conversation.
Yeah, man. Like I mentioned, I posted that picture this morning back in 2019,
Dude, that was cool.
And I saw you said, wow, what a throwback.
Right.
So what a throwback it is.
Right.
Catch us up. How are things going?
Good, man. Really, really good. Last year was tough for everybody. We certainly were not immune to that at all. To give you a little flavor on that, we spent 5 years. I own a little sock brand, so DeadSoxy is a sock brand. We make premium socks kind of designed for the hustle and the hustler. If your no-show's ever peeled off your heel or your dress socks ever slipped down your leg, we kind of created a really premium version of that product to solve those issues. But we've spent 5 years building our brand through the wholesale channel. We were sold in about 275 retailers, really adding 20 to 40 every season. So we were rolling along pretty good, well above pace for what our investors were expecting. Mm-hmm. And then COVID hit. And we basically did 3% of our revenue number in the wholesale channel for spring, summer season last year. And we did about 20% last year in Q4. But you know, you can't build a business on that. So we had to think quickly and kind of scramble and figure out some new ways to make some money and some to deliver some value to our community. And honestly, I think we're going to emerge from 2020 so much stronger and so much tighter as a team. Just having gone through that together and having those creative conversations about who are we now. Mm-hmm. So long story short, to answer your question, we're doing fantastic. I am so happy with where we are today. It's been a heck of a journey, but we're going to land on our feet.
I'm glad to hear. So share with our audience, what exactly is DeadSoxy? What makes the brand unique and distinct?
Yeah, man, sure. So I was a management consultant or consulting, kind of staffing, same thing that you did for about 9 years, and starting out in that field, I didn't ever expect my path to kind of lead to where it has today. Mm-hmm. But traveling, my schedule towards the last 5 years of my job being VP of sales and running about a 12-person team and really being hands-on at all the meetings and doing most of the pitches myself, required a tremendous amount of travel. And when you travel like that, when things don't live up to your expectation and you only have, 2 suits, 2 jeans, 3 pairs of shoes, 5 pairs of underwear, and 10 pairs of socks, when things don't live up to your expectation, it becomes a really big problem really fast. Yeah. And socks were that thing for me. And so they always slid down my leg or wore out or got holes. I was just continually let down in that experience over and over and over again. And then once I kind of became aware of it, I began to have conversations with people that were kind of feeling the same way. And then I did some real research and realized that there's a lot of people already marketing to this problem, but kind of unbased marketing. So I set out to solve that problem myself. Now, I didn't leave the consulting firm, but it was kind of a moonlight hobby gig for a long time until we got it right. And then the moment that we got it right, I literally the next day went in and resigned. 9 years is a long time. My CEO was close to my best friend at that point, and we're still very close today. But the sock is a really premium version. It's all made out of bamboo. They have flat seams. They've got arch support. It's everything that you really want in a sock. Plus, now I guess I get to call myself an inventor, which is kind of cool, because we filed some patents that keep your socks in place on your leg. So, without going too detailed, but they just stay right where you want them. And our no-shows are guaranteed never to peel off the heel. So
yeah. I love it. I love it. I think one of the best ways to sort of inspire people to the journey to success is showcasing examples. And you have obviously done something pretty spectacular in your career. And, the big headline when we were having our pre-conversation call was that you come from like a farm town.
Very different.
You literally came from a farm town and are now a fashion entrepreneur. So how do you even begin to tell that story?
Oh my gosh. It's closer than you might think, actually. Growing up on the farm, that is entrepreneurship. I mean, you are working for yourself every day. You are only working when you want to work, which unfortunately is all the time, because you kind of have to. But you don't really have a boss, or I did, but my grandfather and my dad didn't. But the tie is like making, is being a maker, right? And I akin that to like manicuring the field and then planting the seed and then watering it, making sure the field's clean, and then you harvest it. You see this process of making, right? And what's really cool about that tie is we utilize cotton in a lot of our garments today. And I have seen the entire life cycle of cotton from top to bottom my entire life. So I know exactly what it's like to plant a seed, to harvest a seed, what happens to it in post-production, or the gin, and kind of all of those steps. Now to then take that cotton and go produce something that hopefully people love to wear and that make them feel something when they wear it, man, that's a really cool thing, I think. Some people may not think that's cool. I geek out about it. Yeah.
There's a very interesting kind of parallel you've heard sowing and reaping, where you sort of do a particular activity or you invest in a particular thing and a result sort of comes to pass because of it. I'm very curious, what are the most significant lessons you learned from the farm that translated into career success and entrepreneurship?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is just hard work.
Yeah.
And really what I mean by that is, what are you willing to sacrifice in the short term to reach a long-term goal that you have, right? I think hard work is an interesting conundrum today, because I think everybody works hard or thinks they work hard, so when you're talking about it and you say that phrase, immediately people are like, well, I work hard too. But it's really a question of like, how long do you go? What are you willing to give up? And how bad do you want what you're trying to work for? So I would say the number one thing is just hard work. And there is no shortcut. There is no easy way to do it. And you got to earn it. You got to earn it over and over and over again.
So did you have a sense, like growing up on the farm, of what you may want to have done as you grew older, or?
That's an interesting question. No one's ever really asked me that. But yeah, I did. And, in retrospect, right? So let me just paint the picture for you on the farm, okay? Because it's maybe a little different than it appears. And I think I do that intentionally. But it wasn't all like roses. I grew up in a pretty tough environment. A lot of, substance abuse in small town, 20,000 people in my town. A lot of domestic arguments between my mom and my dad. So I liked the work because it got me out of that. And so I would kind of allow myself to just really go all in because I didn't have to be at home. And I'm not saying that driving a tractor from dawn to dusk from 13 to 18 every day during the summer and praying for it to rain is the right way to go, but that built something in me that I now use as an asset. Circle back to your question again. I want to make sure I cover it.
Yeah. So as far as like the biggest influences that you've learned.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was always into expressing myself through what I wore.
Yeah.
And I got voted best dressed in high school. Not that that was like a big deal, and I may have campaigned for it a bit. So,
yeah.
But I was just always interested in that and expressing myself and kind of differentiating myself through either the music I listened to or the clothes I wore. Something that I could hang my hat on to be a little different. Because I always felt different than my environment. I always felt like I was meant for more and wanted to do more. But I think I've always been interested in style.
Yeah.
And what you wear and how it impacts your day and how you feel.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because even watching some other interviews that you've had before, there was always like a creative gene inside of you that didn't manifest until later on. And I have a very kind of similar story. So I'm curious, working in staffing and then pursuing a creative pursuit, where was like the rubber meets the road in the sense that, okay, now I'm going to venture out. Now is the right time. This is the thing that I'm going to do with my career.
Man, that is there's so much meat on that question.
Yeah.
When I decided to take this leap, it was kind of the perfect storm for me. I'm getting a little personal.
Yeah.
But I had, been in the consulting gig for 7 years, and when you're a successful recruiter and consultant, you're probably doing pretty well financially. Definitely doing quite well. I mean, I was the youngest partner in company history, et cetera, but not even related to the number. It's the mindset that comes along with that. The sense of, oh, well, I can do this, or if I outwork them, then that's typically going to be where the magic is. I don't know, man. Tell me your question one more time. Sorry to lose you.
Yeah, no. As far as like making that actual leap, when did it happen and why? What was the reason being and thrusting into that endeavor? Right.
Okay. So I threw myself into work as a consultant really early on and was able to build a nice kind of existence for myself. And what happens when you have a little bit of financial freedom is that you can dream, right? Yeah. You allow yourself to think in a little bit different terms. And at this exact same time, I was going through a breakup, a really meaningful and impactful breakup, where and those things kind of merged, and I really wanted to be creative. I just had decided one day that that's something that I really didn't get to experience as a kid, and I really wanted to try it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of started asking myself, like, well, I know that I work really hard, and that's typically the secret sauce. What's the raddest way that I could spend my life? If I could do anything, and I kind of live in a world where nothing's impossible mentally, and I do that intentionally, but if I could do anything I want, what is that? Music, I tried it for a few years, failed. I learned a lot, but also learned that I'm a better fan. And then clothes. Those were the two things that I kind of picked out of the air and thought, if I could do anything, that's the coolest, raddest thing that I can imagine.
I love it. So before we take a quick commercial break, I want to know, what do you think is the common theme about Jason, in the sense that you have gone from the farm to a successful consulting career to now building a successful fashion retail company, right? Yep. What is the thing that strung all those things together? What's the life lesson that we should learn from Jason that we could apply into our own lives on our own pathway to success?
Try to understand your own internal limitations by fear. Okay? I think fear exists in all of us, or self-doubt, or however it manifests for you. But really spend some time and take an audit and understand how much, or how little, if you're lucky, but in my case, how much that governs my thinking every day.
Yeah.
And when I kind of realized that it was controlling all of my thoughts, I began to kind of try to control it. And once I did, the whole world opened up. All of it. It's like a flower.
Love it. I love it. Jason, we're going to take a quick commercial break, but before we do, I want to give a shout out to everyone on the live stream right now. I see Katie Harrington, Christy, Sherry Krause, Josh Bryan. Thank you very much for tuning in. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we return, Jason Simmons's Keys to Success.
You want to transition out of your career and do something tech related. CodeUp is the place for you. When I came to CodeUp, I was actually working at a chain hair salon. It was just starting not to be for me anymore. My goals were to never work a weekend ever again, to have full health care and benefits, and to just have more time with my son. And now I've met all of those goals. I don't have any regrets. I just regret not coming sooner when I saw those billboards and I was driving down the highway.
And we're back with Jason Simmons, founder of DeadSoxy. So Jason, I want to talk about your keys to success, the actionable takeaways our audience can listen to and apply in their own lives to start creating results. There is one thing that you are unashamed about admitting, and that is having an unshakable mindset. The knowingness, and it doesn't come from a place of ego, but the knowingness that whatever it is that you want to do, you can accomplish. Where and how did that come from?
Oh, man, you know, I have asked myself that exact same question a lot, because if I could give this to people, I would give it to everybody. Unfortunately, I think it's earned. And I think it's earned over a period of time of continually putting in effort into yourself or whatever it is that you're interested in or trying to learn or trying to accomplish or whatever your goal is. It all falls back down to effort, right? I've got a couple of little tools that I do that I'm going to share with you and your audience, and I haven't talked to you about it yet. But I think it begins with a self-audit.
Okay.
I think you take a look at, you know, your last 30 days and how did you spend Tuesday evening? You know, first of all, you got to know where you're going. And I'm assuming, knowing who your audience is, that they are goal-driven and chasing after something. So that's first. But second is like, how are you spending your Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday or even Saturday? I would say that if it's, you know, at least 75% of that time is not spent doing something that is getting you closer to ultimately where you want to go, then you probably need to realign. But, you know, when it comes, let's just say that you are investing all of that time. Mindset, to me, is a muscle. It doesn't just come, and it can certainly go, and there are ebb and flows. Like, you know, when you're working out hard, your muscles get stronger. When you're like me and you've taken a few years off, they're a little droopy. But so continually invest in that. So what I do, and I'm so grateful, again, at the consulting firm, my old boss, Kevin, would have speakers come in every year. And I've never even told him this. I totally should. But he had a speaker come in one year, and I don't remember the year, but he took us through this exercise. And it's a really powerful kind of a next step to a vision board. But it starts with having a vision and really digging into what that vision is. And, you know, not the superfluous part of it, like what do you want to own? Where do you want to live? What does your future version of yourself look like? What do they do? Who are they married to? Like, you really need to have a pretty granular understanding of that. But when you do, you don't just put it on a board and look at it every, you know, quarter or year or whatever. What I do is a little different. I take that to the next level. I put little reminders for myself. Like I've got one in my wallet right now. And it's actually like one of those gold stars you get as a kindergartner. You know? But I've looked at my vision, in words and images, and had the gold stars, and I've connected those dots. So every time I see one of those gold stars, I know what that represents to me, and it keeps me in line, okay, all the time.
Yeah.
I live in a world where I work all the time because I like it. That's what I want to do. I'm sorry, friends. Sorry, future Wilder that's going to see this show. That's my son. But I just feel good about that, and it's because everywhere I look, I'm reminded what I'm doing here in this short term and where I'm trying to go. They're on my bathroom mirror, they're in my wallet, I got 2 on my laptop, I got them all over my desk, 1 in my car, on my mirror. I mean, they're all over, I can't escape it. And every single time I see that, it snaps me back into being hungry and knowing what I'm working for. So that's a little life hack, man.
Interesting. Where did you learn that?
We had a speaker come in.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we had a speaker come in and he took us through this whole exercise, and it's probably 2007, 2008. And it wasn't long after that till I started absolutely crushing it at the consulting firm. And, it's all a lot of hard work, but it's also a lot stems from that, knowing where I'm going, knowing what I want to do, and then really attaching this thing that is a continual reminder. I think what happens is, like, for me at least, I do a vision board and I get excited about it while I'm doing it, and then a week happens and I'm a little less excited, and then a month happens and I'm a lot less excited. Or a year happens and I lose all thought of what I'm working for. So knowing that that's kind of my predisposition, I built a system to not let that happen.
The keys that I'm hearing is, number 1, developing a really compelling vision. And the second component is sort of that reinforcement, like the stickers and the vision board and everything like that, right? A lot of people that I meet, they don't necessarily have a vision, and they sort of go through life kind of day to day. And for people who really want something to aspire to, how does one catch vision? Like, where does the inspiration come from, would you say?
Boy, Julian, I think if you don't have a vision, stop what you're doing and just imagine what you want your life to be. I think that's exceptionally important. And I unfortunately have a few people close to me that fall in the category that you're talking about, that they just kind of take it as it comes. I just don't think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
I think life is too short to be whimsical and to not be intentional and to not try and grow and make an impact or leave a legacy or whatever your motivator is. I try to talk to them and share resources with them as much as I possibly can. I just don't think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
And maybe happenstance happens and that person bumps into somebody in Subway and, founds a billion-dollar company that changes the world, but more than likely not.
Yeah.
So if your goal is to just kind of take life and take it easy, and that's cool, probably not going to be my friend.
Yeah.
Or probably not yours. Because I think it's really important to surround yourself with people that challenge you and make you think about what you want to do, or make you think about the goals or the impacts that you want to have.
Yeah.
So maybe change your friend group. I think just sitting back and imagining how you want to live later in life is always served me really, really well.
So I hear the self-reflection, finding perhaps some stillness to really discover what is it that you want out of life. I heard change your influences, change your surroundings, because you begin to absorb sort of like the way people think and the way they dream and how big they think. So yeah, absolutely, I see that. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
So the second key to success that I want to talk about, and I want to give a big shout out to Jen. Forgive me if I mispronounce her name. I think it's Sugarmeyer. Jen was very interested in terms of funding when it comes to a business, right? So you have a very specific story where you had 9 cents left in your bank account and you literally needed to make a pitch to save your business. First, tell our audience a little bit about that story so we can create the framework around your advice.
Oh boy. All right, so a little context. I founded this company after 3 years of research and development with my 2 best friends. Unfortunately, they're casualties of war. We hadn't spoken in a very long time and likely will never speak again, unless they watch this interview and dog me out for what I'm about to say. Long story short, we went through a breakup as a team, and I eventually took over the business because I was running the product development up to that point, and really that's who needed to take over the business. So we figured all this out after about 11 months in business, all right? And so we were really young, but thank God we figured it out young. So we had sold about 1,200 pairs, had made $20,000 of revenue at this point, if that. But people got weird, and eventually we found their way out, and I kind of assumed the control of the business. But before that happened, I woke up on a Thursday, and my business partner, and at that point my actual best friend, had cleaned out every single dollar out of the bank account, and in order to make sure we didn't go negative, he left 9 cents in there. How grateful.
Oh, so that was like a spiteful thing?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there was a whole lot of spite going on back then, and on my end too. I definitely would have handled things differently today. But what do you do? What do you do? We have bills. At this point, I had resigned about 16 months before.
You were full-time, okay.
Full-time.
Yeah.
I've been full-time since before we launched, which
Okay,
is a major learning that we could talk about. Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep your job as long as you can. But what do you do? I thought about calling Kevin and asking for my job back and folding it up. And frankly, I was very, very close to doing that. But what I did, instead of that, and I actually think I reached out to him just to plant the seed in case. But what I did instead of that is I figured out how much money I needed to raise to give us a 12-month run rate. I knew how much money we were spending.
Yeah.
And you look at your close network, all right? And you realize the people in your close network that may say yes. And here's what I did. Now, I don't know if this is the right or wrong way, but I put those people in a bucket, and I didn't talk to them at first at all. I knew that they were probably low-hanging fruit, and I could probably get a yes from them. But what I did know is that I only got really one first shot with them. And although they were the lower-hanging fruit, I knew I needed to go get some real experience. And when I got to those people that were likely to say yes, I was prepared. So what I did is I looked at my network, and there's probably 20 people that I wound up pitching directly that I knew, a whole lot more that I pitched that I didn't know, now 6 years into the business. Which we should probably talk about, like the downside of having investors too, because there's certainly a different perception on the business. But I started with people that I didn't think would say yes. And I took them to lunch and told them my idea and told them I was asking for $100,000 and this is what you get for this. And we can be very creative. But what I did is I really paid close attention to where they didn't like it or where they experienced friction or where they doubted my business plan or my monetization plan or whatever. And then I would learn from that. I would go home, and I even recorded some of the conversations. Don't even know if that's legal. But I would go home and mull over this over and over and over to where next time I was better. And the next time I was better. Next time I was even better. And then, you do that 25 times or so, and then I started to get a couple of yeses from low-hanging fruit because I felt really good about going into those meetings. So we were able to raise about $100,000 pretty much immediately. I say 3 months, I was able to kind of get that bridge loan secured. And now, fast forward, we've raised significantly more money than that. But I'll tell you, so we've got 6 investors right now. Total, I've probably pitched 200 people that I'd never met before. Wow. So you get a whole lot of no's, and you got to have really thick skin. Mm-hmm. And just because you get a no from somebody that maybe you desperately want to be around, it's not a no forever. It's just a no right now. Yeah. And that's my mindset on it. It's like, okay, well, I didn't deliver that pitch well, or I didn't scratch the itch that he needed me to scratch. So I would go home and I would really think about it deeply for hours and sometimes days. I'm a little bit obsessive on stuff like that, but you get better, and that's the whole goal. It's like you just get better. Just like you here, it's like in 5 years, what are you going to be? You're going to be very good at this in 5 years. I mean, you already are, but you get my drift.
Yeah. I love it. There's so much there I want to unpack. So I definitely want to go into the how, but how did you first determine the who to approach?
Yeah. First and foremost, they have to have disposable income.
Sure.
So they have to be doing well enough in life to be able to write, sizable check.
So these are individual private investors,
Right.
not like VC or banks or anything.
I talked to some of them too. It was just very, very evident
Yeah.
that we were not right for them.
Okay.
I'll tell you, most PE firms and most VC firms, they really want that 100x return.
Okay.
And although today we could probably deliver that, we were not even anywhere close to that at that point. My best goal at that point was a $10 million stock brand. Had we not solved some big problems, now hopefully it's in the B's at some point in the future. But those guys really put you in a box. All right, they want 100x returns, and they're not really interested in a 20x return. None of them, and they want it quickly. And we just weren't able to do that. So we went with angel and seed money around, and have since then, and honestly probably will until hopefully a PE firm comes in and buys our technology and wants to keep me on as CEO. And then we merge and kind of do some cool stuff down the line. But that's my vision for it.
Interesting. So when it comes to angel and private investors, what is an acceptable return that most you could probably consider as a market value, would you say?
That's a 10x, I think is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an interesting thing to talk about, because one of the things that I did early on that really has served us really well is I got creative, with our valuation. I got creative with what they get versus what we get in the contract. And really what I learned is that everybody has this thought of, well, I'll give you 10% for $100,000. Well, that's fine, but that's literally as cookie cutter as it could possibly get.
Sure.
You can put anything in those contracts, anything. And it is up to you to go know what that investor wants, right?
Yeah.
And so, we've done things like accelerated payouts. We've done things, a couple of different shares of classes, convertible notes, free stocks for life. It's really, you're limited only to your imagination. And the moment that you realize, like, okay, I know this guy, what carrot can I dangle that he might be more interested in than a 10% return or 10% equity stake? That gives you a lot of flexibility. You can drop it down to 7 and give him free stocks for life, and he was ecstatic. And I'm like, I'm in too, let's do this.
Everyone has like a different motivator.
Right.
Interesting. I want to call out Jen. Okay, so Jen is here. Jen wants to ask a question. She says, did you go after only investors or grants as well? Okay, so grants. How did that come into the conversation of raising money? Thank you, Jen, for that question.
Yes, thank you very much for asking. I was always really nervous about the SBA, and I don't know why. Mm-hmm. It just seemed like a whole lot of work early on, and I wasn't sure that we fit their model, so we didn't. I never pursued it ever, and I really regret that. I have now pursued it later, and we were given an SBA grant. Now we have a line of credit and kind of the whole thing, but we only went after private capital, seed money, angel investor types for years.
So what do you know now that you didn't back then that allows you to move forward with the SBA loan?
It is not nearly as daunting as you think it is.
Okay,
not
cool.
Nearly as daunting. I did it in one day, by myself, in one day. As long as you're somewhat organized and you got your business records and profit and loss statement, because they do ask some detailed questions, but if you're an entrepreneur, they're literally probably at your fingertips. At least they were for me. They should be. It's not nearly as daunting as you think it is.
Interesting.
And you can absolutely go get that free money, for sure.
Wow.
Especially today.
Awesome. I love that's inspired me for like my own business. Thank you for sharing that.
You should definitely do it.
Jen, does this answer your question? And it's weird. I'm talking to the live stream. Jen, please ask a follow-up if that wasn't sufficient for you. But I think that was a great piece of information. My question is, so Jen is asking, why do you regret it?
Because it's so easy.
Okay.
And it probably was a solution to a problem a lot earlier on that I made a lot more difficult than I had to.
Gotcha.
Because I really do think, knowing what I know now, had I applied, back then, I think we would have gotten some assistance. Probably not $1 million or something like that, but some assistance.
Gotcha. I got to ask you this.
Okay.
Since it was mainly private investors that you were going after, how did you get the meeting? What did you tell them? Was it an email script? Was it a relationship? How did you get that first meeting?
Persistence is key.
Yeah.
And you get a whole lot of call me next week's, you know, or I'll see you at that networking event thing.
Yeah.
You just have to be, your own champion and your own evangelist, and you don't stop. All right, everybody's got a busy schedule, and knowing that most of the people that I have now on my team are as investors and now advisors, they're all CEOs. They all run their own business, and some people run legit 4 or 5 businesses. So I don't even know how you really do that. So respecting their time, not hitting them on a Monday, like that's the worst possible thing that you can do, is ask somebody that is really busy for some time on a Monday. Don't do that. Hit them on a Thursday, hit them on a Friday, hit them on a Saturday. That's even better. And it just, move from email to text, make it personal, make it easy for them to respond to you. One thing that, we did that I really slept on and underestimated early is getting press. Listen, you end up in Inc. magazine or Forbes or even D magazine, you share that to those people immediately. Drop them a link. Hey, don't know if you saw this, but some people are picking up what we're putting down. It doesn't take too many times before they're like, well, wow, okay, they're obviously doing something. Maybe I should actually listen to this guy. So you just build that kind of drip campaign, and you make it known up front that I'm not going to leave you alone. In a nice way, but hey, if it's not right now, that's fine, but I'm going to ping you from time to time.
I love it. So what was the pitch that developed over time after you got good? What was the hook for DeadSoxy to land those meetings?
Man, I was selling people on, number one, that I knew that there was a big gap, a big void.
So the problem,
Yes.
what you're looking to fill. Gotcha. Okay.
And I used a lot of data. All right, I am a numbers guy.
You are a data guy,
to the max. I love it. I love numbers because they just don't lie.
Yeah.
If you know how to slice and dice, you can get any question answered you want. May not be the answer you do want, but the information is there. All right, so I would go into these meetings and I would, oh God, I messed up so much. But I would paint the picture of, have you ever felt this way? Have you ever been walking and your no-show slipped off your heel? And they're like, yeah, it's the worst stuff ever. It's like, doesn't get any worse. And I'm like, cool, yeah, I solved that problem. Okay, cool. So I'm now working on a dress sock that doesn't slide down your leg. And people are like, well, I don't really care. I'm like, well, the numbers say different. And what I did, and I'm really proud of this, actually. I got on Amazon, and I started by just individually reviewing quotes myself just to see if I could see a theme and be inspired. But then it became like, okay, there's some real meat out there. Like, people are actually talking about the exact thing that I'm trying to solve. And then I got real macro with it and a little growth hacky with it, and scraped probably 100,000 reviews of negative review. 3 stars and below was my bar, because I don't really care about the good stuff. Most of those are fake anyway. But people do care enough to write a negative review when they have a bad experience. And that's really where the meat is. And so I pulled all of those reviews into an Excel document, and I wrote a little script. I did a lot of manual work, but basically pulled out all the ones that had any mention of socks not staying up, slipping down, sliding down, peeling off. There's a 20-word adjectives there that you can pull out reviews with this, and you kind of review those. And Julian, it was a tremendous amount. I mean, it was like around 50%, maybe a little less, but around 50% of those reviews had some mention of sliding down, slipping off, peeling off, something like that. Look, we're talking about 50,000 people that are angry enough to go write a review on this particular problem that I'm now sitting here in front of you telling you that I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to solve if it takes it. So the passion was there, the energy was there, the data was there. We still got a whole lot of no's, but at some point that became meaningful, and the story connected with the people that it should have connected with and missed on the people that it should have missed on.
Yeah.
You just got to, it's the law of large numbers. You just got to keep going, and the more people you pitch, the more, you're liable to hit the one.
And it seemed like there was a genuine understanding of a real problem that your product
personally
could solve.
experienced,
right? So I think that's definitely key. You got to be connected to this mission and purpose.
But unfortunately, at this point, we hadn't solved it.
Okay.
Right?
Really?
And so I'm like pitching on a dream. I'm like, well, here's all the things that we're doing to try and solve it, which is a laundry list. And they all work to a little bit of a degree. But then when we did get it, it was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the B. This is the moment. Anyway, so hopefully all those guys that believed in me before we had it enjoy 1,000% return at some point.
Yeah.
Or even more, I hope. But
I love it. Got another question here from the live stream. It says, do you suggest a PowerPoint slide, problem solution? Why now? Is there too much information? So I think this is the format of delivering the information during a pitch. What advice do you have on that?
Less information as possible on the slide.
Okay.
You need to be a great communicator, and if they are reading, it's already done. Okay? You don't put your heart and soul into text on a screen.
Sure.
You connect with a human that's sitting across the table from you, and you kind of restructure the conversation based on the feedback that you're getting from them, verbal and nonverbal. So what I did is I basically had bullet points, and our deck was not great. And in fact, it's quite laughable if I were to look back at it today. But it basically said, hey, here's what we've done so far. Here's all the progress that we've made. And here's where we're going. And here's how I'm going to try to get there. This is why I need your money. This is where I'm going to put it. And it's only going to get us this far. And we're going to have to go do this again.
Yeah.
And that's about as frank as you can get. But then you have really in-depth conversations around how you're going to get there and how you're going to solve that problem. So it's really conversational. That would be my advice. Is like, do not spend too much, unless you're doing these pitch book and like it's all digital, which I'm not really experienced with. But I know that is a big thing now. Mine was very relational. I would sit down with 2 or 3 people that had been successful and spill my soul to them at the table, and either they vibing or they're not.
Awesome. Less is more in relationship in that case, for sure. Jason, we have a few more minutes left in the time that we have here, right? So let's say someone has an idea.
Okay.
And they need funding to get it. What is your best advice to help their idea come into reality to get that funding?
My best advice would be to bootstrap and to self-fund as long as you possibly can. Because something really interesting and not desired most of the time comes into the equation when you bring other people in. And it is a question of short-term returns or short-term advancement versus long-term authenticity.
Yeah.
And we've got 1 or 2 on our team that are really interested in short-term. And I have always been in this for the long game.
Yeah.
And multi-year, multi-decade if we can make it. So it really creates a bit of a dichotomy in the strategy of the brand and where you spend your money, because you have to have all those conversations. I can't pay myself, more than as in that contract. If I do, I get a lot of questions. So you really have a boss if you take investment. So my advice would be, if you have to take investment, take the absolute minimum amount that you can. Try to get some type of convertible note, some accelerated payout where you pay 20% on top of whatever you got back, and then you get the equity back, something along those lines, if you possibly can. And then just take the least amount that you possibly can. Also, do SBA. It's not hard.
SBA.
It's not hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Cool.
Jason, last question here for you. The show is called Pathways to Success. What is your personal definition of success?
Oh, man. I want to build something, Julian, that outlasts me.
Yeah.
I want to devote my time and build a brand, a household brand that people love and that they feel a certain way when they wear products that we've made. But something that doesn't have to require me to run it. Because this is everything that we're doing is my fingerprint. And I love that now. But when I think about what I want it to become, I want it to be its own thing. Yeah. I want it to have its own life and to have other people that are incredibly excited about what we're doing that I have never spoken with or never touched personally. That to me, when we get to that point, and it's not a revenue number, it's not anything like that. It's just when this thing is really able to stand on its own and function without me doing a lot of work, that's a win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Jason, tell our audience how to connect with you, how to check out DeadSoxy. Tell us all this.
Wow. First, the 45 minutes. I am shocked at how fast that went.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
My personal Instagram is Jason D. Simmons. I'm at Jason D. Simmons on pretty much everything. You can find DeadSoxy at DeadSoxy. It's kind of like Dead Sexy, but DeadSoxy. That gives you an idea of where we came up with that. We actually have a promotion on the site right now that you can try any pair for $8 if you just hit the website. Also, use Julian's code to get 25% off on the website.
The code is Pathways, PATHWAYS.
There we go.
For 25% off. Yeah.
And it's deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com.
I love it. Jason, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Dude,
and I'm looking forward to all the
good time.
amazing things that you do, man.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate it.
And everyone else, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the Pathways to Success. If you haven't already, if you enjoyed this interview with Jason, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel. Big shout out, of course, to our sponsors, DeadSoxy, Code Up, and City Central. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Pathways to Success.